Hi guys, so today in this tutorial I'm going to talk about neomorphism. What's the difference between regular shadowing and neomorphic shadowing, and how to create neomorphic style screens, elements, and so on. So here we have an example of a regular shadow, which basically when we place an element on any screen or any just background and we give it a shadow, this is kind of a regular shadow. Okay, neomorphic shadow or neomorphic look, if we want to give it. So we're actually using Figma's great ability of using more than one shadow, and when we are doing neomorphism, so we can do it actually in Figma very easy, and I will show in a minute how to do it. So here you have a neomorphic look of an element on a screen, and I think it's pretty obvious. Probably you have seen a lot of I guess examples in you guys that maybe are kind of browsing in Dribble, Behance, and so on. So you see a lot of examples of neomorphism. And actually, when we understand the basic thumb rules of how to do neomorphism, I think it's gonna be pretty straightforward and not complicated at all. So if we have two screens, I will say that the basic thumb rule of neomorphism is that you need a background that you can do a darker shadow from the background it's sitting on, any element, and a brighter shadow, meaning lighter and brighter than lighter and darker than the background that the elements are sitting on. Meaning, if you work with a completely white screen or a dark screen, meaning if it's completely white or completely black, you will not be able to create the neomorphic look. Okay, so here we have a screen which is kind of like a light bluish gray, I think, kind of, and here I have a dark screen. So if I want to place, it's either a frame or an element. Let's say I take a frame and I want to create a button, something like that. So I'm gonna give it a shadow. It's gonna 1 second, I'll give it a fill, and I can give it the same color as my background. I'm gonna give it a round corner look, and I'm gonna add a shadow to it. Okay, I added a shadow and I have something like that, which this is the default shadow of any element that we give in Figma. 1 second. Okay, so I'm gonna do this shadow like that to give it a neomorphic look. This element, I'm gonna give it, this is the Y is actually the vertical line, and the X is the horizontal line. I'm gonna place this shadow. Let's give it a, I think something around 6 is gonna be okay, and 6 here. I'm gonna give it a, let's say 16% of opacity, and I'm gonna give its blur kind of a 10, something like that. Okay, maybe even less. I'm gonna give it something like this, and then what I'm gonna do is just easily add another shadow here. And now I'm going to do this shadow exactly opposite than the first one that I did here. Okay, so if we gave this one actually a 6 and a 6 and a 10 blur, I'm going to give it a -6, and this one -6. It's gonna go up. I'm gonna give it a 10 blur, and now what I'm gonna do is make this shadow, the upper one, I'm gonna make it lighter. Let's do something like this, and I'm gonna make it even brighter by raising the opacity, let's say to something like 50. And now I have this look, which is a neomorphic look. Okay, so that was created actually quite easy. And the same thing, we can give it, we can do the same on a darker screen. Okay, if I'll take the same button and I will give it the same color as my background, and I'm gonna do this shadow, let's say on a 30%. I want to see it, and I'm going to give the upper one less of something like that. Okay, so here we created on a dark screen actually the same, and we have the same neomorphic look on a dark screen and on a light screen. If I want to do kind of like a pressed state of this button, I can do it very easy by just turning these drop shadow into inner shadow, and then you're gonna get this very easy, something like that. Okay, so as you see, basically it's playing with the shadows and also playing with linear gradients. Not playing, but just kind of like adjusting, giving shadows on one hand and a linear gradient for some elements that we want to give the neomorphic look. Okay, so let's say that we create let's do something like a button. Okay, we want to do a button, let's say like a play button, that sits on something which is kind of a bump on the screen. Let's see how we create this bump. Very easy. I'll take a circle, something like that, maybe even make it smaller. And now what I'm going to do is give it a fill, give it a linear gradient. I'll do it something like this. You don't have to be kind of super precise, but just giving it, like, the main idea is that the light is coming from here, something like that. As we see here, also the light is coming from here, more or less. Okay, it has to be more or less. It doesn't have to be super precise, but let's see how we create a bump and put a button on it. So what I'm gonna do is this one, I'll give it 100%, and I'm gonna make it darker than the screen, something like that. And this one, I'm gonna do something like that. Okay, so we created kind of like a dark moon, something like that. And you know what, let's do this one a bit lighter. Yeah, okay. And now you know what, let's make it bigger just for the sake of the example. And now what I'm going to do is actually go to the effects, press the plus, and then give it a layer blur. I'm gonna blur this layer something like that. Okay, so now I have this bump or something like that. Looks that there is a bump on my screen, and by the way, you can easily play with that, with the look of it. If you go to the fill again, and let's say I want to make it more extreme, so I can press the lighter part of it and make it a bit lighter, do something like that. And I can make this one not much anymore, but darker. So then I get something like that. So now you see it's kind of like more extreme. I think it's a bit too much, but anyway. And you can also play with a blur. If I'll blur it more, I'll get something like this. Okay. And now, let me put it back to how it was, more or less something like this. And then I'm gonna uh, do this one a bit darker and this one a bit lighter, something like that. And now I'm just gonna duplicate this circle. I'm gonna make it a bit smaller, something like that. I'm gonna drop the blur and I will make it darker. Okay, I'll do something like that, and this one I'll do with something like that. And I can also add a stroke and give the stroke, by the way, a lighter feel. Sorry, this one. This is not what I meant. Yeah, I meant to give the stroke a lighter color, something like that. So now it looks like it's lightened from this part. Yeah, something like that, I guess, will be quite okay. And there you go. You have something like this. Okay, look how easy actually we created that. So that's kind of a cool look of it. Another thing that you can do, kind of like a neomorphic look, you can also place, let's say, if we want to give it kind of like a light. By the way, we can take this and let's see how it happens on a light screen. Now it's gonna look a bit funny, of course. Yeah, it's gonna look pretty weird, I guess. And you know what? Let's make new one, because here it's gonna. Let's just make it something like that, and then basically, I mean, this ones you will see more on a dark screen, but we can also create it on a lighter screen, quite easy. Light, let's give it, sorry, a linear gradient, and then we give it all the way of this one, like all the way its opacity, I mean 100% opacity, and the color of it, let's make it something like, you know what, let me just do this one and this one. Okay, now it's gonna be more easy for me to work. And on this one, I'm gonna do it a bit darker, something like that. And this one, I will do it a bit lighter, something like that. And then I'm just gonna do exactly the same, give it a layer blur, and we have kind of like the same look. Again, I'm gonna have to make the colors maybe a bit more extreme, something like this one. Yeah, something like that. So then we're gonna get the same bump here. It's too grayish, I think, but let me fix it. Yeah, it's just kind of playing around with the colors and reaching the wanted result. So yeah, now it looks better. So we have something like that, and we can do practically the same. The only thing that actually works better on a darker screen, on the dark mode, is when we do elements that we want to give the illusion like they are kind of like lightning, okay, kind of like a light. So we can easily place another circle here, and I'm gonna give it kind of a orange color, something like that. And I'm gonna give it let's say a shadow, and the shadow is gonna be in the color of this. I'm gonna give it a Y0, and I'm gonna give it a blur of, let's say, 20, something like that. I will give it kind of like 80% opacity, and there you go. Okay, you got a button which looks like it's lighting. Actually, we can give it 100%, I guess. We want to go more crazy with this, something like that. Yeah, so it looks pretty cool, actually. So that's one way of doing this. We can also do a button, which is, let's do another example. Yeah, let's give it another example of something like this. Let's take a circle. We can also do it, by the way, with a frame. It doesn't really matter. So a frame can do the same exact. You know what? Let's do it with a frame. Okay, let's do something like that. And I'll give this frame a feel. I will give it, I will make it round. And now I'm gonna do a linear gradient of something like this. If I'm taking under consideration, I want to do this part, which is kind of like more lightened than the upper part. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give this one this color. I'm going to play with its colors now and see how it comes out. Something like this. Yeah, that's good. Something like that. And this one is going to be something like that. We already have the feeling of, of kind of like something, yeah, inside of that screen. But I want to do now something different. I'm gonna give it a shadow. You see that I'm playing a lot with, or adjusting, not playing, kind of adjusting a lot with shadows and linear gradients. Basically, this is how you get the neomorphic look, as you see it happening on the screen. I'm gonna give it a shadow. Let's do something like this, even more, something like this, and give it yeah, that's okay. Now what I wanted to show is that if I take, let's say, this circle, let's copy it and put it here. Okay, and I'll make it bigger, something like that, and I will blur its shadow even more, something like that. And the other thing that I can do is easily, I'll take another circle, I'll do something like this, give it the same color as this one, and now I will give it opacity of something like 20, I think. Let's see exactly how it comes out. Sorry. And I'm gonna blur it, give it a layer blur and do something like this. Yeah, that's pretty good. So if you see now what I did, it looks like a button, which is actually lightning on the bottom of it. Okay, which looks pretty nice. So look how easy just playing with shapes and adjusting opacities, blurring, linear gradients, and you can bring to the screen kind of like very interesting way of look of things. Let's duplicate this screen. And again, as I said, I mean, this kind of like lightning effects, of course, they are better done on a dark screen. On a light screen, you're going to work with different colors, which you can see very nicely, but not something like that, which is going to look, I think, a bit less. Okay. So if I'll delete all these, and let's say that I want to do I'll take a circle, something like this, and let's see how we do that. Yeah, we can do something like that. Let's do something like this, and do something like this. Maybe, you know what, we'll do it a bit thicker, something like that. I'll give it kind of a green color, something like this, and yeah, I guess something like that. And I'm gonna give it a shadow, Let's give it a 20 pixels blur and something like this one. Okay, so we have this beautiful green uh, beautiful green circle of kind of like almost a circle, kind of like a progress bar, or you can do in your designs whatever you need. And what we're going to do now, so we can do something like this. We can take, sorry, not this, I meant we can take an ellipse, do it like that, make it a bit smaller. I'm gonna give it the same color as this one, place it behind it, and I'm gonna turn it around a bit, kind of like rotate it a bit. And here I'm gonna give it a layer blur, opacity of I think like 40 will do the work, blur. And now we have kind of like a light that this one is throwing, something like this. Okay, so that's nice. We can take again this shape that we did here. I can do the shadow if I want the same color as our circle, and then it's gonna look like neonic. It's gonna look like it's a neon thing, something like that. Yeah, and we can give it like a 40 blur, and boom, we have a neon light. Okay, so look how easily we can play with that and give it a kind of like a neon sign, which is pretty cool actually, something like that. Even give it a bigger blur, and there we go, something like this. Okay, so that can be done, as you see, pretty easy. And let's go to the light screen and do something like this. Now we can do, for example, yeah, something like that. Let's delete these, and we can do another example of, I'll take a frame and I will give it a fill. Now I'll give it kind of like, I think 10 pixels round corners, and or 10% actually. No, it's 10 pixels. Yeah, it's 10 pixels, not 10%. It's corner radius. Yeah. And I'll give it a shadow of something like that. Let's do the neomorphic way. Let's give it I think even a 6 can be good enough. And I'm gonna copy this shadow by clicking here, and 1 second. Yeah. Okay, so I gonna give it a -6 and a -6. And of course, I'm gonna give it a brighter shadow, something like this, or even something like this. Okay, so we have it here. Okay, already kind of like the neomorphic look. And another thing that we can do is actually I can duplicate this frame. I'll make it smaller. Or you know what? We can even do it on this frame. And now look at what I'm doing here. Now, so we have this one, and now I'm gonna give it another, I'm gonna duplicate this one. Okay, copy paste. I'm doing Control C, Control V, or on your Mac you can do Command C, Command V when you click on the edge of this shadow here, of any shadow. And now I'm gonna give it an inner shadow, and I'm gonna duplicate this one and also give it an inner shadow. So now we've got something like this. Okay, it's a bit extreme, I guess, but We can give it not the, you know what, not the white one. I'll do this one for like, let's say, uh, 20, I guess, or maybe even 16. Yeah, that's better. Okay, so you can also do something like this, and we can give it a feel, let's say a darker feel, something like that. Okay, so we got like a strange neomorphic look, but it can also be like this. Another thing that you can do, of course, is on the same base. Let's say we're gonna do like a graph. You know what? So if we're doing a graph, let's do it with a frame. So if we're doing like a graph with a frame, let's give it a width of 20. And here we're gonna give it let's give it a round corner look. And the same thing, I'm gonna need to give it a feel. And I'll give it, for now, actually, yeah, we can, you know what, we can give it the same feel as this one, and then we'll play with it and adjust it according to what we want, or the look that we want to give it. Do something like this. Let's give it a 4 and a 4. um I guess an 8. Let me see. That's okay. And I will reduce the opacity on this shadow to give it something like this, I guess. You know what? Even 3 and 3, I think will do a great job. And okay, copy paste and -3, and we'll give it a something like that. Now we have to give it even much more, something like this one. Okay, so we have here a neomorphic look. Of course, it doesn't have to be kind of like a bluish color. You can also do it like more gray if you want. That's okay, or any other one that you feel right and that sits good on your designs. It can even be this one. Okay, and do something like this. You can easily change it. As I said, the thumb rule that you need to keep is not to make it completely white, because then you're not going to be able to create any neomorphic look of it. And now, let's say that I'm going to give this graph inside it. I'm going to put let's do it for the round corners. I'll do it the same width. So it's something like that, and we'll put it inside the frame, something like this. And let's give it kind of like a graph color, something like this. Yeah, I think that's okay. Something like this. Oh yeah, this one is better actually. Something like this. And actually we can also give it a I think let's give it an inner shadow. You know what, I think that here it's gonna look it's gonna be really nice, an inner shadow. And you know what, inner shadow, no, I'm gonna just do it something. Let me try to do something like this. Let me see. No, it doesn't look good. It doesn't look good at all. Okay, so that's not what I meant. Let me give it another try and do something, an inner shadow. I'm gonna copy this one as well and give it an inner shadow. But this one actually I'm gonna do it lighter, and then it's gonna look kind of normal. Yeah, so here we have this look, which kind of like, it's a bit, I don't know, it's a bit maybe too much, but anyway, that's kind of a neomorphic look as well. Another thing that we can do, and you know what, I'll just do it without, it bothers me. Um, Let me give, no, you know what, that's okay. Let's leave it like that, and that's fine. By the way, on the dark screen, if we are doing kind of a graph on a dark screen, let's take this one out and put this one here. Yeah. So on this one, what we can do on a dark screen, we can easily, of course, it's not going to stay in these colors. I'm going to make it something like this. Yeah, something like this. And I'm gonna do this one darker. Let's play with its opacity, something like this. Yeah, that's okay, I think, or maybe even a bit more. Something like this, and give it a 4 and a 4, and we're gonna get a perfect neomorphic look. And this one, by the way, I'm gonna put it on the frame and not inside it. And what you can do is actually give it a bit of a stronger, more saturated color, and I will give it a effect of a shadow with this color. What's going on here? Yeah, okay, so something like this, and let me see, it didn't happen to the shadow. Yeah, something like this, and let me see now, let's give it a 0 on the Y and blur it kind of something like this. And now you have kind of like a lightning graph, which is pretty cool. Something like this. And we can actually copy this one and maybe, you know, just give it kind of like a graph look. So you can do something like that. Again, pretty easy, and you can give work on any color that suits your designs. Of course, the shadow is gonna be in the same color of this one. So the shadow is gonna be like this one. Yeah, that's better. So as you see, you can do it pretty easy, and it's pretty cool actually. You can do, by the way, the same thing with text. I mean, look at this one. You know what? Let's give it a number. 12. I don't know why, but anyway, it doesn't really matter. Let's give it a 12. Let's go with a 12. Okay, so on the 12, same thing. I mean, if it's a number, so you can do it the same thing, something like this, and give it a shadow. You can do it lightning like this one. Okay, let's give it a 0, blur it, and boom, we have something, I guess, like that. So pretty easy. You can do it also on numbers, and you can also give it, I guess, kind of like yeah, we can work the same way as here. You can also give it kind of like a darker shadow and then throw something lightning behind it. You can also do that, but I think that the basic idea of neomorphism is quite understandable. And What you can do also, if you combine it a bit with, you know what, let's take this screen, and I'm gonna copy it. Let's put it like that. One second. And let's say that I will do, by the way, if you wanna do an icon which sits on a button, any button, let's say, let's do this button, a round one. Yeah, something like that. And now, by the way, we can also give this one, this button actually, we can give it a bit of a linear gradient color, something like that. And let me see. Okay, so we'll give it something which it is a bit darker here and a bit lighter here. You see, you can also work like this. And second, the brighter shadow is bothering me a bit. Yeah, do something like that, and I think that I can blur it a bit less. No, sorry, I want to play with, let's say, -4 and a -4. Yeah, that looks better. So something like that. And you can give it also an icon. Let's do a play icon, something like that. Give it a feel. Let's do it like this. Not like this. I meant like this. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, and round its corners a bit. Now, if I put this play button and give it kind of like let's say, an inner shadow, so you can give it an inner shadow a bit. I think that the Y can be something like 3, and the X also something like this, and the blur can be something like this. You know what, the X, I'm going to take it like this and give it a bit more of opacity, something like that. So you see, you created a beautiful play icon which sits on this neomorphic button and looks pretty cool actually. On the same thing, actually, if you want to do the icon, let's say here, let's use this button. You know what, let's double it, let's duplicate it. I'm gonna duplicate it here, and let's leave the lights for a minute. Okay, and I'll take this icon. Yeah, I'm gonna put it here, make it bigger, of course, not this one. I meant this. Okay, yeah, something like that. You know what, maybe even a bit bigger. Yeah, something like that, and do it. Okay, and now actually what you can do is, you know what, I'm gonna give it a drop shadow which looks nice. I'm gonna give it a 24, blur it a bit more, and I'm gonna play with the color of it a bit. I'm gonna give it a linear one. Do it like this. Give it kind of like a more of a depth in a way, something like that. There you go. Okay, so as you see, it's pretty easy, looks really nice. Even its color can be more from the blues, singing the blues. Yeah, something like kind of like a gray bluish one, something like this. See, looks pretty nice actually. And it's pretty easy. So you just have to understand the logic and how to work with it, and all these kind of neomorphic looks can be also easily be done or integrated with interactions and animations. So let's say that I'm gonna duplicate the screen, and I'm gonna do here, you know what, let me do like a slider. Let's do a slider which looks like this. I'm gonna give it a bit of a darker color, something like that. You know what? No, I'm gonna give it a light color, something like that. And now what I'll do is I'll duplicate it, give the one on top of it a darker color, like that. And just do like this, and I got this kind of cool slider which looks like that. Okay, and now let's say that I will take actually, let's make a new one. Let's not be lazy here. Let's take a new one, give it a, again, something like that. um, Something like this. Okay, and now we'll give it a shadow. Yeah, that's okay. I think that's pretty cool. The only thing which I wanted to do is actually take this and put it here, which looks really like a huge light, something like that. And of course, I'm gonna give it less of a blur, something like this. And yeah, not 100%. Let's give it kind of like an 80. I think it's gonna work pretty well. You know what, let me even do it smaller. Yeah, something like that. um okay, that's cool. And I'm gonna group them together or put them in a frame. Cool. So we have our slider, and I'll put it here. And here, what I'll do is that I'll take this circle, this actually slider button. I'm gonna take it to here, and here I'm gonna change the colors of the whole. You know what? Let me give it kind of like a fuchsia, something around that. Yeah, that's cool. Okay, something like this, and I'm gonna give the shadow the same color, something like that. I think it needs to be brighter. Yeah, that is better. And yeah, that's good. And okay, cool. So that looks good. And actually, I'm gonna give this one the same the same color. I'm gonna blur it, this one, of course, more. Do something like even 40 is enough. And I'm gonna give this one the same color, so we're gonna have kind of like changing a theme. 1 second. Yeah, good. So we have we have, what are you doing? We have these screens that are kind of going crazy already. Okay, good. So now the only thing which is left to do is going to prototype, and then I'll put the slider here on drag, smart animate, that's okay. This is exactly what we want, and smart animate. And let's give it a play. Okay, cool. It looks pretty nice, the screen. And now I'm just gonna drag this slider and change the theme colors to here. You see? Pretty cool. And this is, oh, I didn't connect this one. This is on tap. It's gonna be on drag, of course. So now we can bring it back to and change the theme colors. Nice. And yeah, it's pretty cool. And of course, in your designs, you can do it either with drag, you can do it with a toggle button that changes actually from a dark screen to a light screen. So you can design, going from light to dark with a toggle or any button or a slider, or anyway, in real life, usually this is kind of like changing only these colors, but going from light to dark, usually it's kind of a toggle button that does the work. And I think that for now, that's pretty much it. Guys, I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial and it was practical and helpful for you to do great neomorphic style screens. And yeah, I think we covered pretty much. And of course, I will be more than happy for like and subscribe to my channel. More cool tutorials are coming, of course, on the way. And thanks a lot. Have great designs and works, and see you in my next tutorial. Thank you so much. Bye for now.